The Maya legacy still raises questions that seem to have no answers. In today's History and Photos, we're diving into customs that might sound strange to most of us, but were just part of everyday life for the Maya people. Let's start with appearance. Among the Maya, being cross-eyed was seen as a sign of prestige. To achieve this look, young boys had resin balls attached to their hair. The idea was that over time their eyes would shift inward. While this might seem shocking to us today, it reinforced a beauty ideal that was highly valued back then. Another striking practice was skull elongation. From birth, babies were placed in a type of wooden mold that pressed on their heads. Over time, this gradually reshaped their skulls, and this look was considered desirable for both boys and girls. These customs give us a glimpse into a cultural world where beauty and social status were expressed in ways that seem unusual through modern eyes. In the Maya world, body modification was common and full of meaning. They would even embed obsidian or jade plaques into their teeth, and in some cases, shape each tooth into a serrated edge. It wasn't just an aesthetic choice. It was a way to express identity while also honoring higher forces. These customs also included piercings. Various records show the Maya wearing nose rings and having piercings in their ears, tongue, cheeks, lips, and even more intimate areas. For them, each piercing was more than just decoration. It was a form of sacrifice dedicated to the gods, as they believed that every opening in the body served as a gateway for supernatural forces to enter the world of the living. Imagine a game that only ended after the first goal, meaning it could go on for days. That's one version of the ball game played by the Maya, who some researchers believe might have been the original creators of what eventually became soccer, a sport that now fuels massive crowds in Brazil. According to some accounts, in certain matches, the ball was actually a skull covered in the skin of a defeated enemy, or even an entire head. For the Maya, this game symbolized the battle between light and darkness. On the field, two teams from rival tribes faced off with full intensity, knowing that the outcome was about more than just a score. When a goal was finally made, the losing team was sacrificed to the gods, reinforcing the sacred nature of the game. This might seem worlds apart from modern-day soccer, but it helps explain why the sport is still surrounded by so much passion. Have you ever wondered how far an ancient civilization would go to earn the blessing of their gods? In the Maya world, this pursuit involved human sacrifice rituals that varied depending on the occasion. Sometimes they were performed privately within a specific community. Other times they were grand public events led by high priests. For example, when they wanted to ensure a good harvest, the Maya would throw children into cenotes, believing that the water served as a direct gateway to the divine realm. This way, the sacrifice would reach its destination quickly, delivering the tribe's request to the gods. In other cases, especially when seeking more specific favors, the ritual involved burying people alive, often in elevated areas. In the beginning, there was a ritual where the chosen person was placed on a mound. Sometimes they were given a tube to receive water, but in the end, they would die right there. In another type of ceremony, a teenager was taken to the mountains where, after being drugged, they were left behind in an icy cave. Their body, curled up like a fetus, symbolized complete surrender to the gods. Later, a ritual known as the Ritual of the Blood Soul emerged. Once again, a young person was chosen, but they couldn't have any previous injuries. After being drugged, they were tied to a post and struck with arrows or spears. The goal was to prolong their suffering because it was believed that the blood of a still living victim carried their soul directly to the deity. In the main Maya temple, the most intense and sacred of their sacrificial ceremonies took place. The victim was first covered in a special paint, symbolizing their role as a sacred offering, and was given a tall headdress to wear. Then 4 assistants, also marked with the same paint, escorted them to the top of the pyramid. There, on the altar, the victim's arms and legs were restrained. The master of ceremonies would then use a stone knife to cut open the victim's chest and remove their heart, which had to still be beating when handed over to the high priest. The priest would then sprinkle the warm blood onto the statue of the honored god, believing this was the only way the deity would accept the offering. Immediately after, the body was thrown down from the top of the pyramid so that other priests could remove the skin. Finally, the leader of the ritual would wear the blood-soaked skin and perform a ceremonial dance, bringing the sacrifice to a solemn conclusion and reaffirming the devotion to the god being honored. When the sacrificed person was considered an ordinary individual, or chosen at random, their remains were usually burned as part of a ritual that didn't require much ceremony. However, if the sacrifice was someone of noble blood or a warrior known for their bravery in battle, their final fate was drastically different. In these cases, the warrior's body was sliced into pieces and shared among the nobles and priests, who believed that by consuming the flesh and blood, they would inherit the warrior's strength and courage. This act not only reinforced the social hierarchy, but also served as a way to absorb qualities they considered essential for the survival of their people. When we dive into Maya history, we realize that their rituals weren't just about individual sacrifices. At certain times, especially during crises or invasions, some communities carried out mass sacrifices. One striking example happened during the arrival of the Spanish. It's said that an entire tribe chose to commit mass suicide. While this decision might seem incomprehensible at first, it was deeply rooted in their belief in communication with the gods, something they thought could only be achieved through sacrifice. In their view, their souls would embark on a spiritual mission to present their people's struggles to the gods and seek divine assistance. This belief was so powerful that taking their own lives collectively was seen as a unified plea, almost like a cry for help directed toward the spiritual world. Additionally, there was the ritual of cannibalism, practiced on specific occasions, with the intention of ensuring that the memory of the victim remained alive and honored. To the Maya mindset, such ceremonies preserved the spiritual strength of the departed, creating a lasting link between the sacred and their community. It's said that in an ancient tradition, the most honored member of a tribe or a high-status prisoner was chosen for a very peculiar ritual. The selected person was tied to a post, with no preparation to dull their awareness of what was about to happen. Then some women from the community would approach and cut pieces of flesh from the person's thighs, buttocks, and hands, eating them quickly while the victim remained fully conscious, watching everything. This practice didn't offer any recognition or remembrance for the one being sacrificed. Their final fate depended entirely on how they endured the pain. If they didn't let out a single groan, their bones would be buried with honor in the mountains or placed inside hollow tree trunks. That location would then become sacred to the tribe, a place where people would go to pray and make requests. On the other hand, if the unfortunate person let out even the slightest sound, even just a soft sigh, their body would receive no such reverence. After death, their bones would simply be broken and discarded without ceremony or remembrance. In ancient rituals, some warriors carried parts of their enemies' bones as a form of protection. Skulls, for example, were sometimes hung from their belts, while femurs were used as talismans. For these fighters, keeping such a trophy symbolized strength and bravery, almost as if they were absorbing the courage of those they had defeated. Researchers specializing in Maya culture have identified at least 7 different types of sacrifice. Some, like ritual decapitations, are clearly described in ancient inscriptions and records. Others, however, are so extreme that even today, the details are often avoided. As disturbing as these accounts may be, they provide insight into the Maya's complex relationship with life, death, and the supernatural. On All Souls' Day, it's still common for some families to follow a tradition that dates back centuries. They remove the remains of their loved ones from their graves, burn incense as part of a ritual, and then return everything to its place. In the past, this practice held an even deeper meaning. The Maya, for example, would remove the bones of their relatives after a certain period, believing that this strengthened their connection with the departed and attracted the protection of sacred forces. In this way, they kept memories alive and sought the gods' blessings for their community. Imagine a field lit only by the stars and the glow of a massive bonfire. Around it, men, women, and children wait in silence, driven by the hope of driving away the evil that plagues their tribe. When relentless droughts, unusual floods, or disease outbreaks threatened their survival, they sought protection and healing through an ancient ritual, the fire purification dance. To begin the ceremony, the tribe gathered firewood and built a bonfire in the center of the field. As the flames grew, priests started chanting and moving rhythmically, calling upon higher forces and inviting each participant to connect with what they believed to be the power of fire. With every circle the priests made around the flames, the tension and anticipation increased, as if a great secret was about to be revealed. When the intense heat began to fade and only embers remained, the priests carefully spread them across the ground using wooden sticks, creating a carpet of fire. At that moment, the head priest signaled to the young warriors of the tribe. Barefoot, they walked across the glowing embers, carried by the belief that this act purified the soul and strengthened the spirit. This ritual symbolized their readiness to face any challenge, trusting that the gods would be pleased and would protect their entire community. When we look at Maya beliefs, an interesting question comes up. Why did their gods seem to care so much about specific details? Archaeological excavations show that sacrificial rituals often involved dismembering the victims. This wasn't done out of senseless cruelty, but rather to meet a specific requirement of the supreme deity. According to tradition, this deity had 4 short-statured assistants. To satisfy all of them, the sacrifice had to be offered separately, with each body part distributed according to the sacred ritual. This meticulous approach was seen as a way to honor the gods' precise preferences, which explains why the sacrifice was performed in this way. If you enjoyed this topic and want to keep learning about different worldviews from ancient times, subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Thanks for watching.